Hi everyone, welcome back. This is the final part of our After Effects mini-series. So far we've created 2 different Apple Styles animations, and today we will add the last piece before combining them all into one short. In this part we will explore some advanced techniques and unique effects that will make your animation stand out. You will see how all the pieces come together smoothly into polished eye-catching animation that's ready to go viral. All the project files and assets are linked down below, so grab them and let's jump straight into the animation. For those who haven't seen the previous parts, don't worry, the animations are independent of each other. Right click and add adjustment layer. Apply Gaussian blur effect at 17.5 seconds, set a blurriness keyframe, move forward 5 frames and increase the blurriness to 400. Using the rectangle tool, draw a white rectangle at this size, move it to the center of the screen and center its anchor point. Inside the rectangle path settings, set the roundness to 60, add the emoji icon and the profile icon to the comp. Place the profile icon on the left side of the rectangle and scale it down to 80%. Place the emoji icon on the right side of the rectangle and scale it down to 30%. With the ellipse tool, draw a light gray circle that's covered the icon. Move the circle below the icon. Place the gray circle in the center and center its anchor point. Finally, add text and type me in a bold font. I'm using the No Need to Sense font, and of course I will add it to the video description. In the scale, click on the constant property and increase only the Y scale to 130%. Click again on the constant property and lower it to 100%. Move it next to the profile icon and center its anchor point. Duplicate the text layer and instead write lacking confident. Change the font type to regular, move this text under the first and lower the opacity to 70%. For the white rectangle, add the gradient ramp effect. Place the start ramp in the top left corner and the end of the ramp at the bottom right corner. Change the start color to a light pink. Right click on the layer and under layer styles, choose inner shadow. In the inner shadow settings, increase the size to 100. Using the rectangle tool, create another rectangle above the first one. In its settings, increase the roundness to 300. Place the rectangle parts evenly. Duplicate the emoji icon, move its layer above, and place it on the second rectangle in the same position. Drag 5 emoji into the comp and scale them down to 50%. Arrange them evenly across the rectangle. On one emoji, add the glow effect and increase the radius to 400. Copy the glow effect and paste it onto the other emojis. With the ellipse tool, draw a small white circle between the rectangles, about this size. Move it so it's half on the rectangle and half outside. Center its anchor point and move the layer below the rectangle with the emojis. Duplicate the circle, scale it down to 50% and move it below the first circle. For the profile icon, the glow effect and increase the radius to 630. Go to the last keyframe of the adjustment layer, move the rectangle's anchor points to the bottom left corner, parent all the layers related to the first rectangle to the rectangle itself. On the rectangle, create scale, position, rotation and opacity keyframes. Go back to the first keyframe of the adjustment layer, move the rectangle down, scale it to 0%, rotate it by 80 degrees and lower the opacity to 0%. We will add bounce. I'm using the bounce tool, which is of course in the video description and it's completely free. Start with the rotation, grab the rotation keyframes, make sure the property is set to rotation and click on bounce it. Add a bounce to the scale as well and make sure the property is set to scale. Move the last position keyframe slightly forward, go into the graph editor and create a sharp entrance. Go back to the previous keyframes and reduce the rotation to 45 degrees. It should look like this. Now let's create entrance animation for the message parts. Move to the middle of the position keyframes and for the profile icon, the circle below the emoji icon and the emoji itself, create scale keyframes. For the me text, add a position keyframe, go back 5 frames, scale down the profile icon, the circle below the emoji icon and the emoji icon to 0%. Move the me text slightly to the right, add bounce to the scale keyframes, finally grab the position keyframes and add bounce as well. Now we will separate the letters of the sentence, duplicate the second text, copy it, and delete everything except the first letter. Duplicate the layer again, paste the text, and move it to the right so it fits perfectly with the template. Repeat this process until each letter has its own layer, and place exactly with the template. When you're done, delete the first layer that uses the template. At 18.5 seconds, when the word is about to spoken, cut all the parts of the letter layer that come before. Move 6 frames forward from the start of the layer, and create scale, position and rotation keyframes for the letters. Go back to the beginning of the layer, move the letters right and down, scale them down to 0% and rotate them by 60 degrees. Grab all the scale keyframes and add bounce. Then grab all the rotation keyframes and add bounce. And finally grab all the position keyframes and add bounce as well. Create opacity keyframes for all the letter layers, lower them to 0%, move to the last keyframes, and bring the opacity back to 70%. Go back to the start of the layers, open the settings for the first letter, click on Animate, and under Fill Color, choose RGB. Change the color to blue. Create a start keyframe, move half second forward to the moment the letters appear, and raise the start to 100%. Since this is too short, move it another half second forward. Copy the animate we created from the letter, go to the start of the letter layers, and paste the animate onto them. Select all the letter layers and give them an offset of 1. You can either do it manually or use the Motion Tool plugin, which I will add to the video description, and it's completely free. Move to second 18. For all the layers of the top rectangle and the two small circles, create scale keyframes, move 5 frames backward and scale them down to 0%. Grab all the scale keyframes and add bounce. For the two circle layers, in the bounce settings, raise the amplitude to 200. Move to the last keyframes, and for the rectangle layer, center the anchor point. Go back to the first keyframes and raise the Y scale to 100. Take all the emoji layers, and with the trackmate connect them to the rectangle. Bring back the visibility of the rectangle layer, which goes down automatically. For all the emoji layers, go to the first keyframes and add offset of 2. Slightly mask from each other to make an uneven entrance. Again, I'm using the motion tool, but you can also do it manually. Move the emoji layer slightly forward so they appear after the rectangle. Drag the video of the hidden emoji into the comp, add a linear color key effect, and for the color key, sample the background color to remove it. Scale it down to 50%, place it above the rectangle at this point, duplicate the emoji and move it to the right side. Duplicate again and move it to this point. Duplicate one more time and move it slightly to the right. At second 20, create position keyframe for them, go back 1.5 seconds to the moment where the text starts appearing and move them down. Grab the keyframes, go into the graph editor and apply eases. Create opacity keyframes, lower them to 0%, move slightly forward and bring them back to 100%. Go to the last keyframes, lower the opacity to 0%, move slightly backward and bring it back to 100%. Add a glow effect to the first emoji and raise the radius to 200. Copy the glow and paste it onto the other duplicate emojis. Select all the emoji layers and create offset of 3 frames between each other. Move the layers down so they sit above the adjustment layer. Using the shape tool, create a circle around the middle emoji with a stroke of 5 pixels. Duplicate the circle, lower the stroke, enable the fill, and change the color to white. On the duplicate layer, right click and under layer styles choose bevel and emboss. In the blending options, under advanced blending, lower the fill opacity to 0%. In the bevel and emboss settings, raise the highlights opacity to 100% and lower the shadow opacity to 50%. For the circle with the stroke, add the 4-color gradient effect. Place each color point at the edge of the circle. Add the glow effect. Lower the threshold to 40%, raise the radius to 16, then search for the effects box blur effect and raise its radius to 5. Finally, parent the stroke circle to the fill circle. At 18.5 seconds, create a scale keyframe, move 6 frames forward, create another scale keyframe, center the anchor point, move between the keyframes and reduce it to 50%. Which create a press animation. Move to the first keyframe. For the hidden emoji layers, create a scale keyframe, move 4 frames forward and scale it down to 20%. Go to the last keyframe and raise it back to 50%. Return to the first keyframe of the circle and create a position keyframe. Move half second backward and place the circle under the rectangle. Go into the graph editor for the position keyframes and stretch the graph for a fast entrance. Lower the opacity to 0% and create a keyframe. Move slightly forward and bring back the opacity to 100%. Copy those opacity keyframes, move to the first keyframe and place them onto the lower circle with the color. Move half second after the last position keyframe, create a position keyframe, move 1 second forward and move the circle to the side. Create an opacity keyframe and lower it to 0%. Move a few frames backward and raise it back to 100%. Copy those opacity keyframes, place them onto the layer beneath, that with the glow. If you learned something new so far, make sure to subscribe and keep following along for more tips and techniques. Add the map to the comp and rotate it by 90 degrees. Move the map down until it reaches the edge. Add the CC vignette effect. Place the center point in the middle of the map and raise the angle of view to 100. Use the shape tool and create a circle like this size, with a blue fill and white stroke of 8 pixels. Add the glow effect to the layer. Raise the radius to 117 and center the anchor point. Move the map layer so it sits above the adjustment layer. At second 19.5, cut the profile layer, move the cut layer up, and create a scale and position keyframes. Move 1 second forward, position the icon above the blue dot, and scale it down to fit its size. Grab the keyframes, go into the graph editor and stretch the graph for a sharp exit. At the same point, create scale keyframes for the circle, move 4 frames forward, and adjust the scale to match the size of the icon. Move 2 frames forward, and return it to 100%. Grab the scale keyframes and add bounce. The last keyframe of the profile, create opacity keyframes for both layers, lower the circle's opacity to 0%, move 4 frames forward, raise the circle back to 100% and lower the icon to 0%. This way we've created a smooth transition from the icon to the circle. Move slightly before the circle appears. Select all the layers except the first two, the map and the adjustment layer. Create opacity keyframes. Move slightly forward and lower the opacity to 0%. Also create an opacity keyframe for the map. Go back to the first opacity keyframes and lower the map opacity to 0%. Let's take a look. For the top profile icon, add a tint effect. Change the map black to turquoise, and for the map white, sample the light blue color. Finally, lower the tint amount to 0% and create a keyframe. Move forward to the last keyframes and raise the amount to 100%. Go back to the first keyframes and create glow threshold and radius keyframes. Move to the last keyframes, lower the threshold to 0% and change the radius to 170. Select the glow and the tint keyframes, go into the graph editor and create a sharp exit. Add the text and type set. Center the anchor point, increase the Y scale to 130% and then raise both values to 440. Duplicate the text layer, type boundaries, move this text below the first one, scale it down a bit, enlarge the first text slightly more, and arrange them that one sits above the other. Add the emoji of the person to the comp, scale it down to 50%, and place it in this spot between the two texts. Split the word set into separate layers for each letter, as we did before. Make sure each letter sits above the template. When you finish, delete the template layer. Move the anchor point of the letters to the bottom left side. Shortly after second 21, create scale, position, rotation and opacity keyframes for all the letters. Move 5 frames back, move the letters down and to the right. Scale them down to half their size. Rotate them to 55 degrees and lower the opacity to 0%. Grab their scale keyframes and add bounce. Then grab their position keyframes and add bounce. Finally, grab the rotation keyframes and add bounce as well. Move to the last keyframes, add the tint effect to the first letter. For map white, sample the color from the point and change it to a strong shade. Create an amount keyframe, move 5 frames forward and lower the amount to 0%. Copy those amount keyframes and paste them onto the other letters. Select all the 3 letters and create an offset of 1 frame. To make it work, change the map white for the letter E and T to a light blue. Move to the moment right after the first text appears. For the second text, create a position keyframe, move 5 frames backward, and move the text down. Grab the keyframes and add bounce to them. Go into the layer settings, click animate, choose fill color RGB, change the color to fuchsian pink. In the range sector settings, lower the end to 0% and create start and end color keyframes. Move half second forward and raise both to 100%. Then move the end keyframes slightly forward. Go to the first keyframes, lower the opacity to 0% and create keyframe. Move slightly forward and raise the opacity back to 100%. Move back to the moment the text starts appearing. For the person emoji, create position and scale keyframes. Move 5 frames backward, move the emoji down, and finally scale it down to 0%. Add bounce to the scale, and then to the position keyframes. Add the glow effect to the first letter. Raise the radius to 200. Then copy the glow and paste it onto the other letters, and to the word boundaries. Add the glow effect to the person emoji and raise the glow radius to 700. This is how it should look. Duplicate the layer of the blue circle with a white stroke. On the lower circle layer, remove the stroke and delete the keyframes that were there. Scale the circle up significantly to about 460%. Add the gradient ramp effect to the layer. Place the start point in the center of the circle and the end point at one of the edges. Change the ramp shape to radial ramp. Set the start color to light blue. For the end color, sample the same color but change it to a darker shade. Change the layer style to overlay. Delete the opacity keyframes and lower the opacity keyframes to 70%. Move back just before the text appears. Create a scale keyframe for the blue circle. Move 1 second forward to the moment where the text appears and create another scale keyframe. Go back to the first scale keyframe and scale it down to 0%. Enter the graph editor and create a fast entrance. Lower the opacity to 0% and create a keyframe. Move forward a few frames and raise it back to 70%. Just before the last keyframe, create another opacity keyframe. Move to the last keyframe and lower the opacity to 0%. Duplicate the layer 3 times. Select all the layers and create a 5 frames offset between them. It should look like this. Convert the layers to 3D from the first exploding blue circle layer up to the first layer, including the map layer. Right click and add one node camera. Move back to the moment where the blue dots start appearing. Create a camera position keyframe. Move to second 23. After the text has appeared, in the position move forward and upward so the text are in the center of the screen. Grab the position keyframes, go into the graph editor and create a fast entrance. It should look like this. Add the cloud files below the camera, convert them to 3D and scale them up to 300%. Move one of the clouds to the top left and for the other cloud move to the bottom right. Move back to the first opacity keyframe of one of the layers from the previous animation, right before they disappear. At the same point, create scale and position keyframes for the clouds. Lower the opacity to 0% and create keyframes. Move 4 frames forward and raise the opacity back to 100%. Move forward to the moment the text appears and increase the Z position of both clouds until they are no longer visible. Grab both position keyframes, go into the graph editor and stretch the graph to the left to create a fast entrance. Delete the scale keyframes since we don't need them. It should look like this. Move 1 second forward from the last keyframe and move the lower cloud so it's covered the entire screen. Go into the graph editor and stretch the graph to the right to create a fast exit. Right click and add null layer. Convert it to 3D and parent the camera to the null. Move to the middle position keyframes of the clouds. Create position keyframes for the null. Move it slightly upward and place the keyframes above the last keyframe of the cloud. Go into the graph editor and stretch the graph to create a fast exit. Move between the keyframes to the moment the clouds are almost covered the entire screen. Select all the layer from the one before the cloud up to the layer above the map. Create opacity keyframes for all of them. Move slightly forward and lower them to 0%. Go back to the previous opacity keyframe. Create a new solid layer above the map layer. Apply the 4 color gradient effect. Change color 3 to light pink. Sample the same pink to color 2. Set color 1 to white. And color 4 also to white. Lower the opacity to 0% and create opacity keyframe. Move to the last keyframe and raise it back to 100%. Move up to the cloud layer. Create an opacity keyframe for the cloud that covers the screen. Move slightly forward and lower the opacity to 0%. Drag all the keyboard layers into the comp. Move the base layer under all the keys so that the base doesn't cover the layer beneath. Select all layers and scale them down to 60%. Finally, move them to the bottom of the screen. At the point where the cloud disappears, cut all the keyboard layers. For the base layer, add the gradient ramp effect. Place the start ramp at the left edge of the keyboard and the end of the ramp at the bottom right corner. Change the start color to a light pink and click Swap Colors. Add Rough and Edge effect to the base layer. Set border to 100, sharpness to 10, and the Frictional Influence to 0. Right click on the layer and under Layer Styles choose Drop Shadow. In the Drop Shadow settings, increase the size to 100 and lower the opacity to 20%. Right click on the Z letter layer and under Layer Styles add Drop Shadow as well. Set the size to 17 and the opacity to 20%. Copy the Drop Shadow and paste it to all other letters. Go layer by layer and create mask for each letter. So that later we can center the anchor point. Once done, Select all the layers that make up the keyboard and center their anchor point. Extend the base layer of the keyboard slightly. Create position keyframe 1 second from the start. Move to the beginning of the layer and move the base down so it's out of the comp. Grab the keyframes, go into the graph editor and create a fast entrance. Move the layer slightly backward, a few frames from the start of the key layers. Select all the key layers of the keyboard, move the anchor point to the bottom, create a scale keyframe, move to the start of the layer and scale them down to 0%. Select all the scale keyframes and add bounce. Change the setting to random and create an offset of 1 frame. The keyboard should appear like this. Using the shape tool, create a black rectangle in the center of the screen. In the settings, increase the roundness to 90. And finally center the anchor point. Add the arrow icon to the comp, apply the tint effect, click swap colors, scale it down to 10% and place it in the top left corner of the rectangle. Add a black rectangle with a gray stroke, 2 pixels thick. In the rectangle path settings, increase the roundness to 20, duplicate the rectangle, use size to make the duplicate rectangle slightly longer, and then move it to the left. Change its fill color to light purple and the stroke to white. Add the alarm and the calendar icons, bring them up, scale them to 40% and position each on the left side of its rectangle. Add the glow effect to the alarm icon, raise the glow radius to 350, then copy the effect and paste it onto the calendar icon and the arrow icon. Add the glow effect to the pink rectangle, raise the glow radius to 40 and reduce the glow intensity to 0.1. Add the text and write today. Increase the Y scale to 130%, center it in the rectangle, center its anchor point, and slightly scale it down to fit well inside the rectangle. Duplicate the text, write 1 hour, move it to the second rectangle, position it, and center its anchor point. Using the shape tool, create a rectangle slightly outside the large rectangle, and in the settings increase its roundness to 20. Right click on the layer and under layer styles choose inner shadow. Go to the inner glow settings, increase the size to 60 and change the color to white. Duplicate the 1 hour text layer, move the duplicate layer up, change it to 5 minutes, position it in the top of the rectangle and scale it up to 190. Duplicate the layer again and write 15 minutes, position it below the 5 minutes layer, duplicate again and write 30 minutes and move it slightly downward. Duplicate again and write 1 hour, move it down and arrange it below. Duplicate once more, write 2 hours and move it down. It becomes slightly too large, so select all the text and scale them down to 150. Using the shape tool, create a turquoise rectangle around the 1 hour text, increase its roundness to 20, place the layer below the 1 hour text and position the rectangle under the text. Add the glow effect to the layer and raise the glow radius to 75. When the keyboard letters start entering, create scale keyframe for the black rectangle, create scale and position keyframes for the arrow, create scale keyframe for the 2 rectangles, create position keyframe for the 2 icons, create position keyframes for the new text, center the anchor point of the rectangle and create a scale keyframe. Create position keyframes for all other layers, move 5 frames backward, start from the bottom, reduce the X scale of the black rectangle to 0%, move the arrow icon slightly left, center the anchor point of the small black rectangle and reduce its X scale to 0%. Center the anchor point of the purple rectangle and reduce its X scale to 0%. Move the alarm icon slightly up and the calendar icon slightly down. Move the text to the size. Reduce the Y scale of the black rectangle to 0%, move the text sideways and move the other text sideways. Move the turquoise rectangle up. Select all the position keyframes and add bounce. Then select all the scale keyframes and add bounce as well. Create opacity keyframes, lower them to 0%, move to the last keyframes and raise it back to 100%. And all of this work should turn out like this. Duplicate the black rectangle layer. For the bottom rectangle, add a 4-color gradient effect. Place each color point at the center of the rectangle edges. Add the glow effect and slightly raise the radius to 40. Add the effects box blur effect and increase the blur radius to 10. Go to the last keyframes of the rectangle, reduce to 50% and create keyframes for the 4 gradient points. Move 1 second forward after the rectangle appears.
and move each point to the position of the previous point. Move another second forward and repeat the same process. Move forward again and repeat once more. Finally, move half second forward, copy the first color keyframes, and paste them at the same point. Right-click and add a solid above the black rectangle layer. Search for the Venetian bind effect and apply it. Increase the transition compilation to 88%, duplicate the effect, and in the duplicate, rotate the direction by 90 degrees. Add the grid and ramp effect. Place the start ramp at the top left corner of the rectangle, and the end ramp at the center of the rectangle. Change the ramp shape to radial ramp. Set the start color to light gray, and the end color change to black. Finally, turn the solid to the black rectangle and restore the visibility that turned off automatically. Right-click on the duplicate rectangle layer and under Layer Styles select Inner Shadow. In the Inner Shadow settings, increase the size to 65 and lower the opacity to 30%. Add a text and write, "Speak about yourself in a positive way." Move the text to this area, stretch the text. As before, duplicate the layer and separate each letter to its own layer, position above it like in the template. Finally, delete the layer that uses the template. Select all the words and center the anchor point. Move back to the moment when she starts saying the sentence and create position keyframes. Move 5 frames back and lower the text. Select all the position keyframes and add bounce. Lower the opacity of the letters to 0% and create a position keyframe. Move to the last keyframes and bring back the opacity to 100%. Arrange the letters with the offset of 5 frames. Take a look. Add a tint effect to the first word. Change the map white to pink. Add a glow effect and raise the radius to 80. For the earlier keyframes of the word, create an amount keyframe, move forward a few frames and lower the amount to 0%. Copy the tint and the glow effects and paste them onto all the other letters. Make sure to paste them exactly above the last keyframes of each letter. Let's take a quick look. Drag the sparkle emoji into the comp, add the linear color key effect, and sample the background color to remove it. Place the emoji on the rectangle, reduce the scale to 50%, add a glow effect, and increase the radius to 150. Move them to the right side of the sentence, and create a position keyframe. Move forward 1.5 seconds, and raise the icon upward. Open the graph editor and apply Ease Ease. Lower the opacity to 0% and create opacity keyframe. Move back slightly and bring it back to 100%. Move slightly after the layer starts, create a keyframe, go back to the first keyframe and lower the opacity to 0%. Duplicate the layer and move the duplicate layer to the left. Duplicate it again, move the new duplicate layer slightly to the right and lower it down. Duplicate one last time and move the duplicate layer to the left. Select all the layers and create offset of 5 frames between them. Select all the layers and move them below the letters layers. Let's see how it looks. Add the key highlight and then lower the opacity to 50%. Add the text and type the letter S. Center its anchor point. Increase the Y scale to 130% and increase its overall scale to 300. Move forward to the moment when the sentence just starting appearing.
Basically, what we want to do is create a many small text layers, which each layer contains a single layer that in the sentence speak about.
What we will do is cut the S, delete a part of the previous layer, move forward slightly and cut again. Move forward a little more, change the letter to E and cut the layer. Move forward a bit, change the letter to A and cut the layer. Move forward a little more and change the letter to K. Now we want to leave a 7 frame gap between the words and start constructing the next word, which is about. We will repeat exactly the same steps as we did for the previous word until the word is fully assembled. When you're done, delete the remaining parts of the layer. Also, go back to the start of the first layer and cut the part of the key highlight layer that is before it. Select the key highlight layers and all the letters above it and pre-compose them. At the same point, cut and delete all the parts of the pre-compose layer that come before it.
Now we basically want to place the key light on the corresponding letter on the key at the same time.
Move forward to the moment when the letter changes, cut it, and position the cut layer on its corresponding key. Move forward again to the next letter change, cut it, and place it above its key. Continue this process until the end of the word. When you reach the space, cut the pre-comp at that point, move to the start of the space, go down to the space key layer on the keyboard, add the tint effect, create a map white keyframe, and move to the end of the space. At that point, create another keyframe, then go between the two keyframes and change the color to gray. After that, continue cutting and placing each letter above its key until the end of the word. Finally, delete the remaining parts of the layer. And this is how the typing effect is created. Select all the layers and move them to the start time of the word appearing. Also, move the tint keyframes of the space key to align with the space area. Once you finish the sentence, find the return key, center its anchor point, create a scale keyframe, move 7 frames forward, and reduce its scale to 20%. Move 3 frames forward, then copy and paste the first keyframe. Add the glow effect. Change the glow colors to A and B colors, set color A to light cyan, and for color B, sample the same color. Set threshold to 0% and increase the radius to 170. Go to the middle keyframe, create radius and intensity keyframes, then go to the first keyframe and lower both radius and intensity to 0, and do the same for the last keyframe. I forgot to lower the intensity to 0 in the first keyframe, so let's do it. Shortly after the last keyframes of the space key, select all animated layers, and just before 26 seconds, cut and delete the rest of the layers. Make sure to also remove any leftover layers from the previous animation. Add motion blur to all 286 layers.
Can often come in the form of lacking confidence or the ability to set boundaries and even speak about yourself in a positive way, then she's not going to respect you.
And that's the end of the final part of the series. We've built multiple Apple styles animation and combined them into one short. I hope you pick up a new technique along the way, and if you enjoyed the series, make sure to give us a like and subscribe. Thank you for watching.